All right, so in this example, we have some C300 Mark II footage, and I'm gonna try to grade it without using any LUTs. I'm gonna use Colorista in this example, but no LUTs, just Colorista. So again, we're gonna make a new adjustment layer. And then we're gonna work on the overall look. And how I would do this is I would first find kind of like a hero shot, which is basically like my favorite shot with the nicest lighting that I'm going for. So I would say maybe this shot is the hero shot. So I'm gonna keep it on this frame and I'm going to make my grade here. So we're gonna take Colorista, we're gonna add it to the adjustment layer. We're gonna look at Lumetri scopes, just so we have some more information. And what we're gonna do is we're going to add a little bit of contrast. And then we're going to add a little bit of saturation. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to make a little bit of a Hollywood teal and orange look. So we're gonna start with colors. We're gonna take the shadow wheel and bring it to the teal. And then we're gonna go to the opposite direction in the midtones. And then we're gonna go the opposite direction of the midtones to in the highlights area to fix some of that color shift. And let's see what we have so far. That's looking pretty good. Let's take it a little bit further. So that's looking pretty good now, this look. And now we'll go through each of the clips and correct them. So we're gonna add Colorista. And we're gonna get the blacks to 0 IRE here. And we're gonna take the highlights down just a bit since this is a sunset look. I want it to be a little bit darker. That's looking pretty good. I like that. Just thinking if there's anything else that needs to be changed there. No, that looks pretty good. All right, so we'll go to the next clip here. All right, this one's looking way too bright, that's for sure. So we'll take the shadows down to 0 IRE, and we're gonna take the mid-tones way down since this is, again, sunset shot. I'm also trying to create a little bit of contrast on her face so it looks a little bit more interesting than just flat lighting on her face. And this one's also a little bit bluer, I think, than this shot. So I'm gonna try to match these two a little bit better and push a little bit of more orange into the highlights here. Well, actually, let's try the midtones first, see what that does. Well, that's working pretty good, actually. Because if I shift the highlights in this case, it's affecting the building a lot on the outside, which really makes it warm. But I don't want to affect the building so much. I just want to affect her face more so it pops out of the image more. So that's actually working much nicer. And now the two shots match a little bit better. So we'll go to the next shot here. Again, add Colorista. Gonna boost the mid-tones a little bit and drop the highlights. And this one, I think I want to push a little bit more orange into the mid-tones again. and maybe a little bit more blue in the shadows. That's looking good. I'm gonna try and copy and paste this since they're very similar shots here. That looks good. And we'll go to this same setting again. So I'm just gonna try and copy and paste. In this case, I want her face to be a little bit more contrasty. So what I'm gonna actually do is play around until her face pops out a little bit more. And again, I'm gonna add a little bit more orange to the midtones. That's looking pretty good. We can just check what so that's what the LUT is doing, and then our colorista. So you can see without the colorista, it's pretty flat and pretty boring, but we add the colorista, color correct it properly, and it's looking much nicer now. Let's try to copy and paste. In this case, copy and pasting did not work, so I'm just gonna restart colorista. And I'm gonna drop the midtones. And this one you can see is it's shifted towards the blue much more than, for example, the last clip. You can see that shift. So we're gonna be adding into the midtones the opposite direction. I'm gonna move it a little bit more towards the warm side. And we're gonna do the same with the highlights. And now you can see that matches much better. The blacks are being crushed a little bit too much here, so we're just gonna bring up the shadows. Remember, you only want the shadows to be just touching the 0 IRE level. And then we will copy and paste from the last one. It's working a little bit, but not too much. It's a little bit blue, so I'm just gonna add a little bit of warmth to it. That's matching pretty well. Now this is a totally different scene, so we could basically make a totally different look for this section, but I'll try to keep it fairly similar. Maybe we'll do these ones a little bit more cool to just have some contrast to these warm shots, and then have a few much more cooler tones in these last shots. So we will start with colorista, take the shadows down, just bring the midtones up a little bit, and let's drop the highlights a little bit. Let's make it nice and moody. And then we want that cool tone to it, so we're gonna bring more blue to the highlights here. Let's go a little bit further with the blue. And then we're going to take this, copy and paste it with this one and see what happens. So this one's much brighter, so we'll drop the exposure down. Midtones can be much darker here. It's also looking really desaturated here, so we're just going to add a little bit more saturation. And there you go. So this was making your own look instead of using a LUT, but basically you're using the same process. But I like starting with LUTs. It's a good way to start the color grade.